Welcome to the Wednesday, December 18th, 2024 meeting of the Gloucester Conservation Commission. The time is just after 5:30. And as amendments to the open meeting law allow, the Conservation Commission may continue to hold meetings remotely. Adequate alternative access to the meetings is provided through the Zoom link. As always, continue to check the city calendar and the upcoming agendas for the upcoming meeting login, Zoom links, and call-in information. We will start with a roll call of commissioners present. Member Charpentier.
Here.
Member Cook.
Here.
Member Sargent.
Here.
Member Viteri.
Here.
Member Gulla.
Here.
And Member Jackson.
Here.
All right, so we have a quorum.
Okay. Welcome to the meeting. We're going to start off with an administrative briefing. Chuck, do you have anything to add to your opening comments?
Yeah, so we do finally have a assistant conservation agent who started on Monday, and hopefully she will get up to speed quickly and be a good help for the commission and the public to keep things rolling. We do have several continued items, but I think we will get to those pretty quickly at the top of the agenda, so I won't waste more time in going through those now.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you. We'll move on to public comment. Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to comment on a topic of conservation interest that is not on the agenda tonight?
We currently have 19 attendees, and I am not seeing any hands up at this time.
Okay, I'll close the public comment period. We have minutes.
I'm sorry, before we get going, I don't know if anybody's here for the enforcement order for Whipple Stop Way. They are moving forward on that, but they don't have anything that they presented for this meeting yet. So I do hope to be, I think, at the first meeting in January, but for people that are here for that, it will not be discussed this evening. So sorry about that.
Okay, no problem. Okay, we do have minutes from August 4th and 21, September 11th and 18th, October 9 and 23, November 6th and 20th, and December 4th pending. The new assistant will be catching up on those as soon as she can do so. Meanwhile, we'll move on to continued business. First up is NOI 0282950. Excuse me, at 160, 158 Rear and 154A Essex Avenue, Upper Banjo LLC. This item was previously continued to January 8th, 2025. Next is NOI 0283006 at 105 Wingersheek Road, 25 Wingersheek LLC, also previously continued to 1/8/25. Next up is NOI 0283007 at 107 Wingersheek Road, owned by 125 Wingersheek LLC. That is also previously continued to January 8th, 2025. Next, NOI 0283015 at 91 Wingersheek Road, 91 Wingersheek Road Realty Trust, was previously continued to January 8th, 2025. Minor modification 0282719 at 87 Rear Wingersheek Road, Ann Davis, was previously continued to January 8th, 2025. NOI 0282976 at 171 and 281 Rear Magnolia Avenue, Howmag LLC, has requested to continue to January 8th, 2025. Do I have such a motion?
Charpentier moves to continue NOI 0282976 at 171 and 281 R Magnolia Ave to the commission meeting of January 8th, 2025.
Do we have a second? Who did that? I'm sorry, Bill? Thank you.
Roll call. Member Charpentier.
Yes.
Member Cook.
Yes.
Member Sargent.
Yes.
Member Viteri.
Yes.
Member Gulla.
Yes.
Member Jackson.
Yes. Next up, we have NOI 0283005 at 4 River Road, Hay Stuppy, 4 River Road LLC. They have requested to continue to January 8, 2025.
Charpentier moves to continue NOI 028-3005 at 4 River Road to the commission meeting of January 8th, 2025.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
Roll call, Member Charpentier,
Yes,
Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Sargent,
Yes.
Member Lettieri,
Yes.
Member Gullo,
Yes.
Member Jackson.
Yes. Next up, we have NOI 0283020 at 2 High Rock Terrace, Peter Carboni and Susan McNulty, to raise and rebuild a single-family home and the associated appurtenances and dune restoration within coastal dune and land subject to coastal storm flowage and buffer zone to coastal resource areas, Coastal Bank, represented by Devin Tabor of Lucas Environmental LLC. This has not been continued. Do we have a representative?
Good evening, commission members. Devin Tabor here from Lucas Environmental. Also with me this evening, I have Anthony Mackey, the architect on the project, Mr. Joel Favaza, the attorney and representative of the owners and applicants. We have Hillary Holdsworth, the landscape designer, and we have Mr. Dan Ottenheimer, who is the project engineer as our team here before you. So I just wanted to take the time and say thank you to the commission for your patience with getting this submittal in. We've gone through quite a bit of redesign on the project. We've addressed a lot of comments and concerns that both you and your board had, Mass DEP and concerned abutters. I also wanted to take the time to just iterate that this is a single family home. We're trying to improve all aspects of the lot, the property, the proposed design incorporates, now raising the structure, all structures on the property, including the garage, and while still providing such a robust dune restoration and enhancement plan designed by Hillary and her team. So we did submit a pretty substantial supplemental package that kind of went through those comments that were made during the September 11th, 2024 hearing, and then on the site visit as well, which was held in, I believe it was October 10th. So I'm happy to kind of go through those comments or to save time and just more so ask the commission if they have any other concerns, if they've gone through the package. More than happy to pull up the plans as well to go through the revisions and just kind of see, how you guys want to handle things.
Okay, for speaking for myself, I've had a chance to go through them, not as thoroughly as I would like. A brief summary would be helpful to me.
Okay.
But do keep it brief because I do have questions from those. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Yeah.
So I can pull up the plan. I think that'll be easiest. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Great. So I think the main focus that I'd like to just touch on here is, again, we've raised the proposed structure. We have made a few changes to the design to where we've added in street water runoff infiltration area here where my cursor is up against High Rock Terrace to try to maintain and infiltrate that runoff that's coming from both of the high points off of the roadway, and that drains onto the property. We've also incorporated a different orientation for this side seasonal staircase that comes off of the most northern temporary staircase off the deck, which would it's reoriented in a way to change the foot traffic patterns to not allow for any traversing through the proposed restoration area. I know that was a concern of the commission and abutters, and during our last meeting. And more so what we've done was we've tried to allow for the neighborhood access on the existing manicured lawn that's along Twilight Avenue, along that right of way. I know there was major concern during our site visit, which I know some of the commissioners weren't able to attend, but it seemed to be a very frequently used area by the neighborhood, and we understand that. And while, you know, obviously it would be the intent of the applicant to try to restore and enhance as much of the property as possible, we're kind of confined by those comments and concerns that were brought up. And so what we did was we've kept our native species planting, again, the coastal dune restoration, all within, you know, or outside of that area where my cursor is. And then we've introduced those areas along the side, kept those areas along the side here where my cursor is as well, against the property bounds. So first floor elevation of the proposed garage is going to be 21.1 feet to match the proposed dwelling. And we've provided a lot of information about what was approved during the ZBA versus what's, you know, before the commission now. So I'd be happy to answer any questions there. And then we've also provided updated calculations and tables of the entire project, broken down within what's within 100-foot buffer of the coastal beach, the coastal dune, and then the mitigation table within the dune system itself. And then I guess lastly, a big change from what was before you before was DEP and your board brought up comments on the delineation of the dune. We went in and we looked at the underlying sediments. We provided that information and found that the entire site is a secondary dune system. We have our primary dune up here, identified by flags A through, or the A series, excuse me. And so that has not changed, but the entire site, again, we found was dune. So what we did was we elevated the structure to meet the performance standards set forth in 310 CMR. So I think that's it. I want to keep it short and sweet because I know you all have questions. So be happy to answer those.
Okay, good. Thank you. I'll open this up for public comment. And if you would wait until the end of both public and commission comments to respond, I'd appreciate it. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to comment on the project at 2 High Rock Terrace?
We currently have 16 attendees. We have one hand up at the moment, Mark Chincata.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you for your time. So,
Name and address for the record,
my name is
please.
Mark Sincata, and I live at 8 Twilight Ave.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. So while some of the issues that we're concerned about aren't the purview of the Conservation Commission, we just want to let you know some of our concerns. And as a result of the updated NLY, several features have changed as compared to what the ZBA approved. And we want to sort of just get those on the record. The deck has changed. It's larger and it's closer to the 4 High Rock Terrace lot line. Number of stairs has increased from 1 to 2 off of the deck. The foundation's been raised and is now on piers. That we didn't see any dimensions on how high these piers were or the depths of the piers were. The average grade before construction on the original plans approved by the ZBA on 8/22/22 was 18 feet 10 inches, and it's increased now by 18 inches to 20 feet 4 inches. And we're wondering how this could change from what the ZBA approved. And we don't see any final dimensions on the height. And again, I understand some of this is not of your purview. It'll be zoning issues. But we feel that some of these changes should be reviewed by the ZBA and make sure that they're in compliance with what they've actually approved or in alignment with what they've approved. And finally, I want to thank Chuck. He's been awesome, really professional, responsive, and very helpful throughout the process. And wish you all a happy holidays. And that's it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sincata.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have anyone else who wishes to comment?
Do we have another hand up? Camille Vicente?
Okay,
Hi, yes, can you hear me?
yes, we can. Name and address for the record, please.
Camille Vicente, 158 Essex Ave. There are a number of concerning issues with this proposed project despite the recent changes in the NOI supplement. For one, it looks like as though there are still 866 square feet of plantings outside of its deeded property lines that are used to count towards mitigation for increased impervious surface area within the property lines. Using land outside of deeded property lines for mitigation will set a precedent that allows for an increased impervious footprints along many private roads. This precedent enables a huge harmful impact on our watershed, as Gloucester has a lot of private roads that border a lot of wetlands. Well, it's been argued that the applicant owns to the center of the private road, so the plantings are technically not off-site. The logic is flawed that these improvements outside of the deeded property bounds should mitigate increased impervious areas. Land in the right-of-way is subject to the right of others for that intended purpose. And while the plantings do not necessarily interfere with the rights of others, this argument does not address the issue at hand, which is whether mitigation plantings outside of the deeded property boundaries should compensate for increased impervious areas within their property boundaries. Well, it argues it is essentially not possible to widen the road pavement due to the environmentally sensitive area. The applicant seeks to increase their own footprint in the same environmentally sensitive area. Mitigation for increased impervious areas should be the same regardless of whether or not you are on a public or a private road. It should not be feasible to have a larger impervious footprint if you're on a private road. Any mitigation plantings within the right-of-way are not entirely under the applicant's control, and the applicant cannot guarantee their survivability. For all of these reasons, the applicant should not be able to count these towards their mitigation compliance. By counting native species plantings outside of the deeded property lines, the impact mitigation tables are skewed. It'd be helpful to see an impact mitigation table that shows the ratio of increased impervious surface area to the proposed native species that are within their deeded property lines. In the buffer zone to a coastal beach, the ratio seems more like it's a 1-to-1, 885 square feet within the property lines to 846 increase in impervious surface area, excuse me. In the buffer zone to the coastal dune table, the current impervious surface area includes the current parking, though in the existing conditions mapped, it's listed as P-stone parking. Isn't that considered pervious? The new maps show concrete rampings to the garage, but the mitigations show no change. Overall, the mitigation tables do not look accurate. In the NOI supplement, the applicant responds to performance standards for the coastal dune, claiming it will decrease impervious surfaces by 1,128 square feet. I just wanted to comment there's no reduction in impervious surface area, rather the project increases it significantly, and just that the language in this is misleading and inaccurate. As currently proposed, the project does not mitigate their impact. I urge review of these mitigation tables and plead that only mitigation within the property bounds count in the mitigation ratio. Allowing for an increased impervious footprint along private roads will set a precedent that would have serious consequences for our watershed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who wishes to comment?
There is one more hand up. Gulls View.
I'm sorry?
The name is Gulls View.
Okay.
Not sure. Let's see. They're still muted.
I'm mute, okay. Okay,
Ah,
hi, my name's Paul Fitch, 12 Twilight Ave.
thank you.
Just a couple of quick questions. I know I see it on pilings, but are those pilings gonna be drilled or hammered in?
I can't answer that right now. The representative will answer it after
All
we've
right,
gone
well-
through all comments.
Okay, underneath all that is ledge. Now, there's that ledge going to be blasted, if not going down to the depth that they need to put the foundation on the beach side. And the only other thing is, yeah, I know it's been addressed about the 3 different walkways to the beach, but why is it going through the dunes and not over the dunes? Thank you for your time. Merry Christmas.
Thank you for yours and same to you. Okay.
No other hands up at this time.
All right. I will close the public comment period and we will move on to commissioner comments.
Member Charpentier.
I had a similar question about the walkways and also would like to hear what the client has to say about the mitigation.
Member Cook,
Just echoing what Linda said.
Member Sargent,
Thank you for stipulating that all the property is in primary and secondary sand dune. The main problems I have with this proposal are CCM guidance states that the landward toe of the primary dune is the limit of a flood zone. For some odd reason, it's depicted that the flood zone is seaward and below the primary frontal dune. This doesn't make any sense. Using a section of Twilight Ave for personal mitigation is a classic pyramid model. Those neighbors who use Twilight Ave for mitigation first are the winners, and there's little area left for others to potentially use for mitigation or adequate access to the beach. In other words, first come, first served. Complicating matters even further, it's not clear of a previous 2019 NOI and SOC that permitted dune restoration at the end of Twilight Avenue is once again being considered for the planting of dune grass, double dipping, if you will. I note that more than doubling the size of the house creates all of the difficulties and hardships with this proposal. If a smaller footprint house were moved further back from the shoreline, there would be more than adequate room within the lot for mitigation, and there would be better protection from sea level rise and flooding. And I'm wondering if other commissioners, how they feel about a third-party review. Thank you.
Member Terry,
Yeah, I'm curious, Chuck, what your view is on the primary frontal dune issue. I'm inclined to have the applicant perform a more detailed analysis as recommended by CZM. One question is, has any effort been made to confer with the neighboring property owner about remediating the stormwater runoff from the street and the concrete channel that's near that fence on the other side? Echoing previous comments about the walkway through the dune, I would like to see restoration of the existing dune after the existing stairwell is removed and a new walkway be put over the dune in compliance with current best practices instead of continuing the current use that goes through the kind of that little ravine or cut through the dune that exists today. I have a question about some of the materials in the neighbor presentation mentioned that Twilight Avenue was taken by the city by eminent domain in the 1980s. I'm wondering if this part of Twilight Avenue that abuts the property where the mitigation is supposed to be placed, if that is part of what was taken by the city, and if we should confer with the city attorney about that situation before we consider whether or not mitigation plantings can be put there. I'd also like to see a calculation of mitigation that is within the deeded property boundaries and not including what's in Twilight Ave. And my last comment is all the ZBA issues I don't think are really in front of us. I think that's issues that should be taken up with the ZBA. It's not really something that's in our purview.
Member Villa, you're muted. You're muted.
Sorry about that. Yeah, mine's similar to what other commissioners have already stated today. Again, my bigger concern is the mitigation path at this time. That's about it for now.
Member Jackson,
So many questions. I also agree with the prior commissioner comments, as well as some of the abutter comments regarding maintaining mitigation within the property bounds. Normally, we're the last agency for permitting that an applicant comes before. So I'd like to make sure that the ZBA discrepancies are taken care of. I also had wanted to talk with the city attorney regarding Twilight Avenue. This mitigation there concerns me. I would like to see the walkways over the dunes. I think Mr. Sargent's comments were on point. The neighbor's comment about the piers and the ledge need to be addressed. And I know I had another one, but I've lost it right now. Okay. Would you like to respond to, would the applicant like to respond to the concerns?
Yes, I think Joel Vavaza is going to address the butter comments, and then I can address any other comments that he.
Okay. Okay, can I actually interrupt you for one moment? I'm very
Yes.
sorry. I would also like to get comments from the agent.
Sure. I guess I just want to, remind the commission that this is a new delineation from the last one that was discussed previously. So I think, the commission should definitely consider whether or not they approve or, if there's any questions with this delineation before they, further deliberate, what areas are actually impacted and what the calculations of those impacts are, and then performance standards. I'm glad that the redelineation has been done. I'm glad that some of these soil pits have been done. But it seems like there's not really any information given as to how that primary frontal dune was delineated, besides that, they considered the break of the slope at the concrete curb, which is not really a natural break. It's kind of a, man-made, artifact at that location. It seems like there's more effort expended explaining why they didn't follow the methodology than rather talking about what methodology actually was to delineate this primary frontal dune. And that's important because the primary frontal dune is per se significant. And we do currently have impacts in there with the deck and the footings of the deck that are proposed. But if that primary frontal dune is further back, there's going to be some additional areas that may need to be moved outside of that primary frontal dune. So I think it needs to be maybe looked at by somebody that has a, coastal geologist that's familiar with working in very disturbed areas like this. I think the idea of potentially having a third party review is not a bad idea. This is a pretty difficult area. There's no neighboring sites either. That dune is really disturbed all along that area, but getting the delineation correct before proceeding on figuring out what the actual impacts might be and mitigation and the performance standards, I think, is important. Going on to some of these other issues, the guidance is that the structures are built at least 2 feet above the dune. Looking at the elevation photos or the drawings of it, I don't believe that portions of it are meeting that 2-foot elevation above the dune. There's also sideboards and stuff that go down all the way down to the dune surface. Those should not be there because those are not going to allow that dune sand to move, the wind to blow, that sort of thing. There's also no indication of, it's 2 feet for the lowest member. So if there's any ties going across those piers, those should be 2 feet above the dune. I agree. It'd be good to see some of the subsurface, are these piles or are these piers? Is there a subsurface foundation that these are going to be sitting on? Then you're having a structure subsurface that could be affecting the movement of the sand. There's also a portion of the of this new proposal that talks about how certain portions of the site don't have the functions of the dune that don't allow the sand to shift and with the winds and the storm flows, and therefore those areas should not have to meet that standard and those performance standards in the new design. I don't think that's a correct analysis of the Wetlands Protection Act. I think that, in a redevelopment like this, it needs to be designed so that function is restored to those areas. Currently with all that additional pavers and concrete and all that kind of stuff on top of it. I don't see how, I'm not convinced by what's been provided that those performance standards are being met by the current proposal. And additionally, there's still some concrete walls that are at grade. Those should be elevated, kind of around where the driveway is. And also that proposed ramp looks to be solid. That should be a graded type thing that allows airflow and also allows for the sand to move. So I think, again, I think the commission should kind of step back and kind of first consider, is this delineation correct, before moving on to figure out, what are the potential impacts and what are, how the performance standards are being met.
Thank you very much, Chuck. That was a lot of information. We appreciate it. And you've revived my lost comment, which was, I'm all for third-party review on this site. Okay, now the applicant has a chance to respond to all of this.
Thank you. So for the record, my name is Joel Pavazza. I'm an attorney at Seaside Legal Solutions, 123 Main Street in Gloucester. I just want to touch upon a few things. First off, with all due respect, as you know, I'm in a lot of these meetings, and I just want to bring up the fact that this application went in 4+ months ago, and this commission has discussed that if you're going to be asking for third-party review, it should be done at the beginning, because it's unfair to applicants to have them spend months in permitting, revise plans, go out and do further studies, only to then have this commission say, you know what, I think we need a third-party reviewer. So with all due respect, I hear the conversation you're having tonight, and it seems to negate the fact this very commission has discussed the fact that it's unfair to applicants to months down the road suddenly request a third-party review. This property has not changed in any significant way. The proposal has not changed in any significant way. All you've received is more information, but everyone knew where this house was when this application rolled in August. And so respectfully, if this commission wanted a third-party review, the time to do it was when the first rolled in. And again, this is not me making this, proclamation. This is me quoting you, the members, at previous meetings talking about this and other projects. So again, if there's a third-party review to be done, it is what it is. But again, I find it very unfair to this applicant that you spent 4 months before requiring it. It basically puts them back to square one. Secondly, on that same vein, I appreciate the comments about the FEMA flood zone, and while it may not make sense, to some commissioners, the reality is the FEMA flood zone is established by the federal government, and it is controlling, and nothing in the Gloucester Wetlands Ordinance or in the DEP regs, allows you to second guess or say, hey, listen, we don't like where FEMA put the line, so we want to treat the site differently than where FEMA put the line. The line is where the line is. And, it goes in both directions. A lot of applicants come to you feeling very unfavorably about where FEMA lines are on their property, but they don't get to go to you and say, I don't like where FEMA put the line. I don't think it makes sense. So can we please pretend it was somewhere else, right? You wouldn't let an applicant do it. I don't think, with all due respect, the commission can decide to move the FEMA line or act as if the FEMA line was somewhere else. As to the direct abutter comments, as far as the discrepancies with the ZBA, I think as the chair pointed out, if there are discrepancies, the ZBA is going to have to be visited once more to take care of that. But I would point out that the comment was made that things have gotten bigger, and that is simply not true. It's included in the supplement that Devin submitted. The deck that was approved by the ZBA is larger than the deck that is being proposed tonight. So any modification to the ZBA plan relating to that deck would be a request to shrink the deck from what was already approved. Otherwise, as has been discussed, that is the comments are otherwise ZBA purview, and of course we will go to the ZBA as is necessary post permitting. And then with regards to what Ms. Vicente said, again, with all due respect to Camille, she is not a wetland scientist, she is not a civil engineer, she is not a lawyer. And while I appreciate that she has well-rehearsed and well-prepared statements, the majority of what she explained to you tonight was factually and or legally incorrect. There was a lot of talk, also among some commissioners, about quote unquote staying within the property bounds. And I want to be very clear that my clients own their portion of Twilight Avenue. Twilight Avenue, and I've just, while we were on this meeting, I pulled the city's own street listing to confirm Twilight Avenue is a private way beginning at Long Beach Road and terminating at the dead end, which becomes the beach. And so my clients own their portion of Twilight Avenue. That portion of the property is subject to the right of way of others to cross that part of their property, but they are within their property bounds when they are in the layout of Twilight Avenue, because that is property they are responsible for it legally. If they needed maintenance, that would be their maintenance to do. If someone got hurt out there, broke their ankle out on Twilight Avenue, you better believe that their lawyer would be suing my clients for getting hurt out in, you know, a portion of their private property. So these plantings and this dune restoration that is within the layout of the right of way, although within the layout of the right of way, is not outside the property bounds. The property is owned to the midpoint of Twilight Avenue. And so the degree that there's concern about whether or not these mitigations should count because they're off the property, they're not off the property, they're on the property. They're just in a part of the property subject to the rights of others to traverse it. And so otherwise, the majority of Ms. Cindy's arguments are otherwise, you know, just factually incorrect. You have experts on this call, you have experts who have submitted, you know, copious amounts of written information that contradict what Ms. Vicente has alleged tonight. And with all due respect, I would ask you to respect and give weight to the opinions and conclusions of the experts versus, you know, a non-expert who, as the crow flies, lives 4 miles from this property and does not have the familiarity with it that the experts who've been hired do, or that the applicant themselves do. And that's all I have for the legal response on some of those issues raised. I'll turn the thing back over to Devin for the more technical responses.
Thank you,
Okay.
Joel.
May I make,
Oh, go ahead.
could I just respond to Mr. Favazza, please? Because it requires response. First of all, we would love to listen to the expert, which is why we're considering a third-party review. Second of all, this project was first presented on September 11th. We had a full presentation. We had a full discussion. On September 18th, there was nothing new presented. It was continued that discussion to October 23rd, which meant that it also wasn't discussed at October 9th. On October 23rd, it was continued. On November 6th, it was continued to December 18th, which meant that it wasn't heard on November 20th and it wasn't heard on December 4th. So this is our second discussion on this. If we could have made a decision on the third-party review at the first meeting, we would have, but we had requested more information. Today, we have it. Okay, go ahead, please, with the rest of your presentation.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So I think with regards to I'll just start with the abutters and then move sequentially through the commissioners and kind of sort of call on Dan and Anthony and Hillary when needed. It looks like Joel answered a few of the questions with regards to the deck, the ZBA, all of that. Piles, we can get into that, whether blasting is required. We can also pivot over to Dan. Dan, do you want to just answer those questions very quickly and then we'll move forward?
I do not believe blasting will be necessary. We seem to have adequate depth in the general vicinity of the current house. And the architect, Anthony, has spent a little more time on the house design than I have, so he might have a little more information to share as well.
Good evening, members of the board. Yeah, as Dan said, no blasting required. We're going to do piles. Those usually are driven to refusal, so we're not going to blast out if we don't get deep enough for that. So piles are going to be used. I have the pile plan laid out. I think that will hold up the building very well, as it is dune from the investigations that we've done. So piles is the best way to go currently as shown on the plan.
Thank you. Just to note, so now going through the commissioners' concerns, I know there's major concerns with the walkways. I do want to iterate that these walkways are temporary seasonal walkways. They will not be permanent structures. Where the most seaward walkway will be located, and I can pull up a plan if that makes things easier, which will be Hillary's landscape plan, because I think it's nice and pretty for you all. So this walkway right here, where the seasonal staircase where we're proposing the most seaward area, is in the same footprint than what exists today. I think it should be made clear that we are not proposing any more alteration in the primary dune at all than what exists now. While it would be obviously favorable to restore this whole area, this would completely, if we don't have this access, it cuts off the access from the applicant's property to directly to the coastal beach within their property bounds. They would be forced to use the right of way. They'd be forced to go around and use the walkway that's just north here where my cursor is. So it really is imperative to the applicant and owners to maintain what already exists today without impacting or causing any adverse impact to the dune. To go back to the land subject to coastal storm flowage, I think Joel noted on that, which Commissioner Sargent brought up. We do have the limit of land subject to coastal storm flowage more landward than its set elevation. It is the edge of the primary dune that has not changed, that has been on the plan. So more or less that's a moot point. So with regards to double dipping on the property, we are no longer proposing any mitigation or enhancement within areas that are already vegetated. This area that we are restoring and enhancing is all currently lawn. And this is the only area within the right-of-way that we are proposing any restoration. And I believe someone pointed out that it was 800 and something square feet, and we are proposing on the entire site 3.6 times more than what we are impacting with regards to impervious. So I just want to take the time to say, if we took this away, this is important to the project, right? This is important to the site. Right now it's lawn. What they want to do is create a native dune habitat. This is where our primary dune is, which I can get into that delineation, which was conducted in accordance with the CZM guidelines. I also do want to note that those are guidelines. While the manual is something that is what we use as wetland scientists all the time, it's not set regulation. We performed our delineation of the primary dune and the secondary dune at the request of DEP and the commission, utilizing all regulatory guidelines, and included in that was the CZM manual. I can get into how we did it, what we did it, but I think a lot of our cross sections and the underlying sediments and the data that we provided would answer those questions sufficiently. With regards to the concrete channel, that is off property. That is not on our client's property or the applicant's property. Therefore, there's nothing we can do about that. I did try to come up with a solution. Hopefully that, if the commission wants to see that remediated in any sort of way, our clients would work very cohesively with their abutters to try to get an application in place to get that remediated, and do so, at a different time and separately than this notice of intent, because it would take another property and their consent and the other abutter. With regards to the 2 feet above the dune for the piles, I think Anthony and or Dan can answer that, but just to try to keep things going here, I hope that kind of synopsis everything that was commented on, and then more or less, if there's anything else, any other information that the commission's going to need, our team is happy to provide that and answer any other questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Madam Chair, I apologize. I just wanted to, Commissioner Sargent had one more point, I just wanted to address that also, about the I don't know, a pyramid scheme, whatever it was, to think about, first come, first serve, about using, restoring within the right of way. I want to be clear that people along Twilight would only each be able to use their own owned portions. So the Carbonis using any of their portion does not preclude any other owner on Twilight Avenue from using their portion of Twilight Avenue for their own mitigation for future projects. There's no, removal of the ability for anyone else to do the exact same thing. So I don't think it's first come, first serve. I don't think it's pyramided. I think it's just literally using what you have. And so to make sure that was clear that we're not eliminating anyone's ability to use their part of Twilight Avenue for the same purposes, should they choose to propose it going down. This only impacts this property and will not have an impact on the other properties and their abilities to service the environment through their future permitting.
Is that not a right of way granted to other property owners in the area?
No, it is. What I'm saying is that anybody else would be able to do the same thing with their own frontage, right? Neighbors have frontage on Twilight Avenue, they own that part. And if they had a proposal that required them to mitigate into the layout, same thing, as long as their mitigation was not unreasonably interfering with the passage of people over that portion of the property, they would have the same rights that my clients do. And so no one can say, hey, sorry, Peter and Susie already used part of Twilight Avenue, you can't. They say, no, Peter and Susie used Peter and Susie's part of Twilight Avenue. And if, Tom Jones wants to use his part of Twilight Avenue, what happened down here doesn't impact that.
Although if owner one went out to the midpoint of the road, owner two would not be able to because it would block access.
Oh, I understand.
Okay.
And that again, obviously, to be very clear, nothing is changing with the current, right? My clients didn't establish where the pavement ends. My clients aren't altering the pavement ends. That's just, maintaining, basically, if this doesn't, right, if this, to go the other way, right? If nothing happens here, then that part of Twilight Avenue will just remain a lawn, right? At no point does Twilight Avenue become a road or something else. It'll just keep being a lawn. And so when your options are keep it a lawn or turn it to a dune, we'd hope you'd say, well, let's turn it into a dune if that's one of the choices.
Okay, thank you. I think I'd like to poll the commissioners as to whether they feel that we are on the road to having sufficient information or whether we feel that we need a third-party reviewer.
Member Secretary.
I think I'd like to know what the scope of work is going to be for the third-party reviewer. And what exactly we're looking for in information that has not already been provided.
Okay, fair question. Maybe some of our other commissioners, as we go through the comments, can address that, and I will also.
Member Cook.
My only concern is the deviations from the ZBA.
Member Sargent.
I think this is a very sensitive area and it's not quite clear where dune delineations are or flood zone delineations are, or how we can meet the performance standard. So I'd like to have a third-party review.
Terry.
Yeah, I mean, I think the scope of a third-party review would be delineation of the primary frontal dune. I have a question on the dune restoration in that area. I mean, there's a boulder wall between the beach and the dunes on the beach and this area that's now lawn that's going to be restored into a dune. I'm assuming that landscaping plan is going to maintain that boulder wall and is going to maintain, I guess my question is it going to maintain the sort of smaller retaining wall that's on the Twilight Ave side of things? And if that's the case, what good is a restored dune on that sort of platform area? Shouldn't it be connected to the existing dune so that the entire, dune system is integrated into, one new restored dune? If you're restoring that dune area, it doesn't make sense for it to be disconnected from the existing dune. The restoration should be the entire dune becoming part of the rest of the dune ecosystem.
Member Bell.
I would concur with the rest of my fellow commissioners to date that I am concerned too about this project being extremely complex and therefore I also would be party to third-party review.
Member Jackson?
Yes, I would like a third-party review in terms of the dune delineation and in terms of the assertion that dune functions that were lost due to prior development do not need to be restored. I question that. And I would also like a conversation with the city attorney about the right-of-way and the ability to use that. Okay, so where do we go from here? Do we take a formal vote? So one of us motion for it?
I'll make a motion for third-party review.
Charpentier seconds.
I'll call Member Charpentier,
Yes.
Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Sargent,
Yes.
Member Terry,
Yes.
Member Bella,
Yes.
and Member Jackson.
Yes. Okay. Then we will, unless there's anything more to be said, we will continue this until, when would you like it continued to?
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I would just, the only other thing is, I mean, technically the applicant is, or you could vote on it tonight as well, correct? They could, they wanted to make a motion towards,
Yep.
whether or not prove it is obvious, but it
I don't
might
think
be,
that's being requested without Mr. Chair.
okay. Understood.
I'll make, sorry, one more issue. My question about the neighboring, the concrete channel in the neighbor was whether any efforts had been made to reach out to that neighbor. I gather that none have been made, but you're willing to do so. So I would ask that be done, and, if it has to be a separate NOI, that's not an issue, but I'd like to see sort of that problem remedied, and especially the channelization through the dune from the runoff be remedied as well.
So I think that, on behalf of the applicants, we can certainly, I guess, two things, right? We can't make the abutting property owner do anything that they do or do not want to do. And so while we can, represent, and you can rely on the representation that we will make good faith efforts to reach out and communicate this to them, I would just caution and respectfully request that that couldn't be a condition, right? You can't say, hey, unless something happens on your neighbor's property, we can't let you do something on your property, right? We can go as far as to say, we understand you, we agree, and we will make good faith efforts to try and get something, but I want to make sure that this project doesn't become contingent on something that we have no control over. The abutter says, we appreciate the offer, but no, we don't want to do anything. And then this project had otherwise gone through third-party review, gone through whatever other revisions we need to. And then the last piece missing is, I can't force someone, I can't force to do something they don't want to.
I would also like to address a couple of the comments before we move forward, and one of them being that wall that's along the concrete curb that hits the deck. Half of that wall, that boulder wall, while impairs the synchronization of the ecosystem of the dune and movement of the dune, that's not being proposed to be removed. Half of that wall is in the right of way. That's something that we could always take back to the applicant and see if they would be amendable. I don't know structurally its integrity, what it's doing for Twilight Avenue, the concrete curb. Not sure what that's, what's that doing there, but that's also separating the primary dune from its secondary dune system that's been in place, grandfathered in. So with regards to that, that's always something that we can come up with a solution if feasible, to present to the commission. And then two, with regards to the scope of this work. So the commission is voting for a third-party review of the delineation of the primary dune, because our entire site is within dune, right? So all of the site from property bound at the edge where we have that fire hydrant is what we're calling all dune. So you are just looking for where the limits of the primary dune is. You have an issue with that, correct? Is that?
yes, we want more detail on the delineation of the primary dune. And
because we're meeting, so with regards to the non-significance piece, and I know Chuck mentioned that earlier in his comments, that we did include a piece of the property that is currently not functioning as a coastal dune. I mean, the entire site is, again, developed. We see developed dunes all the time along the coast of Massachusetts. There's no secret there. The piece that we're looking at that is not currently functioning as a dune would be where the sidewalk currently exists in the front of the house against High Rock Terrace, and where we're proposing that driveway. That's kind of where that non-significance comes to play, because the rest of the property where we're proposing these structures are all elevated, right? So we understand that there's walls there, there's a concrete driveway there, and we understand that you're concerned about those structures. But that is where that non-significance kind of comes in, because if you look at the regulation and the standards set forth on, does the coastal dune have the ability, to erode? What's the coastal dune volume there? All things set forth in 310 CMR 10.28, we tried to address wholeheartedly. So if the commission wants more information on that, we'd be happy to turn around and provide it. We really obviously want to avoid a third-party review at the expense and time of the applicant, but we understand you voted on that. I just wanted to take the time to address as much as I could before the meeting ended.
I
Thank
think
you.
there were questions on the extent of the primary frontal dune and the flood zone and all of that.
Yeah.
And Chuck, were there other areas that you wanted addressed in a third-party review?
Yeah, I guess, you brought up the areas that were called out as non-significant, that don't need to be restored. And I think, a general review of whether or not this is meeting performance standards. There's obviously a lot of areas that are covered with pavers that are not covered with vegetation. That sand is not going to be able to be vegetated, and it's also not going to be able to shift the same as the sand that was not encumbered by that type of thing. So it's, a lot of different issues. Also, having that deck stay in the primary frontal dune. My understanding of the performance standards of primary frontal dune, I find it very hard to find that would be able to meet the performance standards and still have a deck within the primary frontal dune where it's currently delineated. So I think, I think just having the entire project kind of reviewed would not be a bad thing after, the actual delineation is determined. But we could maybe, I don't know. That's up to the commission. Obviously, the first piece is figuring out where the correct delineation is to know where all the resources lie.
Thank you, Chuck. Bill, did you
Hey,
want to
this is
say
Bill.
something?
Yeah, this is Bill Cook. The easement that people have, it's basically over the existing grass area, right along I'll say the property line, up to the boulder wall. Is that correct?
Yes, and theoretically through the dune and out onto the beach, right? This
But
triangle is the property.
it's from that edge of the property line where, you're gonna put the pebblestone and granite pathway, that edge of the property line, where right above that, where it
Yeah,
says.
the
you're
thick
gonna
black
keep
line,
it-
yeah. Yes,
That is the easement, right?
yes. The way out of Charlotte Avenue is 40 feet wide. So anything northwest of the thick black line of the thicker, not the line A, the thick black line that shows the edge. I think northwest
Okay.
of that is within the layout of the right of way. And again, that's owned, the first 20 feet are owned by my clients, subject to the right of others to pass and repass over it.
The reason I just wanted to specify that is, it's one thing if somebody has an easement and they're walking over the grass. Once you do the dune restoration and put beach grass in there, I believe that almost by definition, there's gonna be signs that say, keep off the beach grass, which is effectively negating the easement.
So to that point, you'll see on this plan that we've scaled things back so that the dune restoration only begins just about where the paved part of Twilight Avenue narrows down into that walkway that's there. So anybody, to the degree, again, my clients don't recall seeing anyone coming across the lawn. Why would you come across the lawn when you can come down the street? But to the degree that anybody currently uses the grass to get down Twilight Avenue, this would not impede them from doing the same and then still going left down to that path. The dune restoration only comes to the point where you start being confined in by where the existing dune that's been restored is. So the path of travel, to the degree that it really exists across this grass, is not going to be impacted. The other thing I just want to point out is that, you know, we have on the one hand concern that if there's dune grass where there's currently lawn, people might not be able to walk through it. And on the other hand, we have concern that, you know, there's you know, a lack of concern. You know, my clients, in the same way the neighbors have the rights to walk down Twilight Avenue and, you know, and get to the beach, my clients have the right to walk through their own property to get to the beach. And so the temporary staircase that's being proposed, where the current permanent staircase is through the dune, right? You know, that's the same, there should be the same concern there. I mean, you know, we can't say, hey, listen, we want to make sure that we don't put dune grass up on Twilight because people can't walk through it, but we'd like you to fill in this part of your walkway on the eastern side that's always been there so that you can't walk through it, right? Like, if the concern is making sure people can walk through, then it should apply to these stairs. And the concern is making sure no one walks through, then you would think you would want, you know, as much grass as possible converted over. But either way, the plan is that whoever might walk across the grass now, to the degree they do and are able to, that will not be impacted. And the dune restoration will only start where people would naturally hop down off this lawn and get onto the path.
But that dune restoration, by definition, would or could potentially block the easement.
Yeah, but it would not unreasonably interfere with the use of the easement, because at that point, when you're at the dune grass, the use of the easement is through that small path that was installed several years back. You
Well,
know,
I also think it would be very effective to keep anybody that wanted to walk through that area away so that people, it wouldn't be impacting the people. It's just a concern that I have also, like I said.
yeah, and then I hear that concern. I think the reality is, you know, that's where their lawn's here. No one walks. That's private lawn, right? I know it's within the layout. The reality is no one walks on their grass. There's you know, Adirondack chairs out there. This is someone's yard. No one's walking through this yard. And then if they did, again, using the right of way, from a commission standpoint, I don't know if Devin or someone can put up a satellite, and I'll take 2 seconds to get the satellite photo up just to show. You actually really don't want, you know, I would think you do not want anyone traversing that way, because when you get to the end of what is currently the lawn on the Carbone property within the layout, you get to the existing dune on Long Beach. And so anybody who walked past where we're trying to restore, we said, oh, we're not going to restore anything, we'll keep it all lawn how it is. Once you get into that area where we were otherwise going to restore, your options are either to your right, you have a house, you can't walk through that. And in front of you and to your left, you have dune. So if you've gone that far, you've gone too far, because the only way to get to the beach from that part of this lawn is through the existing dune. And so by us filling in this gap with restored dune, again, isn't going to impact anybody. Yeah, so I know that we can zoom in and all, but basically where her cursor is, you can see, yeah, right there. There's the chairs I was talking about, right? That's the area we're going to restore as dune. If you're on foot and you're in there right now, besides the fact that you're clearly in someone's private yard, you can't get to the beach without crossing through dune that's already been established. And so it would behoove us, we believe, to just fill in that little rectangular polygon, and then you see where the pavement stops, kind of right above where the cursor is. You know, that would be the part where you'd want anybody to hop down and use the road and the path anyway. You'd never want them to come past those chairs. And so the only person who loses in this is my clients, right? Right now they have a nice little lawn area where they throw chairs and stuff, and that's all going to become protected dune. The neighborhood, it makes no sense for them to walk where those chairs are. You can't get to the beach from there. They would still be able to walk down the grass part along the pavement and then hop down onto the path.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm seeing a continuation in your future. When would you like to continue to?
So my only concern, I'll have to have an answer. My only concern is, obviously you'll need time to get the third party reviewer on board. We'll need to have a conversation with them. And so, I'm okay if Devin's okay with having this go out, a couple meetings, but I don't want to, if you have to come back to vote to hire the third party reviewer, I'll make sure that's all in place so that if, after the holidays, Chuck says, hey, I've got this person, they're available, we can work with them through January, and then maybe show up at the first February meeting, ready to go. But if we continue up to February and we don't get to move forward with a third party reviewer until February, then I'd request an earlier date, if that makes sense.
Okay, Chuck,
No,
do we need to have a formal vote on a third party reviewer?
no, the commission, once I receive, some proposals, I can circulate them to you, and I don't believe that needs to be a formal vote in a meeting for you guys to prove that.
Okay, sounds good. And we will all respond quickly, I'm sure.
So Devin, does the first one in February work on your end? You'll be the one doing the heavy lifting with the third party reviewer when they come on board.
Yeah, so February 5th.
February 5th. Okay. All right. Then I will entertain a motion to continue to High Rock Terrace to the meeting of February 5th.
Charpentier moves to continue NOI 0283020 to High Rock Terrace to the commission meeting of February 5th, 2025.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
Roll call, Member Charpentier,
Yes.
Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Sargent,
Yes.
Member Lettieri,
Yes.
Member Bella,
Yes.
and Member Jackson.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll see you then.
Thank you, commission members. Happy holidays.
You too. Okay, next up is NOI 0283022 at 3 Kirk Road, Greg Souza, requesting to continue to the next meeting, Chuck.
They have not requested yet. John Judd is here.
Okay.
We need to promote him now. I believe they will request to continue because I believe they need to go back to the ZBA. So
Okay.
let's see.
Mr. Judd, do we have you?
He is rejoining as a panelist right now.
All right.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Chuck and Madam Chair. For the record, John Judd, engineer with Gateway Consultants. Yes, we are please requesting a continuance for 3 Kirk Road to allow the Zoning Board of Appeals to settle things out on the variance request for the work in the flood zone. So whether I'm not sure when that can take place. So I'd like to put a placeholder in on the 8th, if that's possible. It very well could be requested at that time or prior to that time. I'll let Chuck know if we need another meeting to get that resolved. Thank you.
Sounds fair. Okay, do I have such a motion?
Charpentier moves to continue NOI 0283022 at 3 Kirk Road to the commission meeting of January 8th, 2025.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
Roll call, Member Charpentier,
Yes.
Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Sargent,
Yes.
Member Lettieri,
Yes.
Member Bella,
Yes.
and Member Jackson.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Judd.
Thank you.
Next up is NOI 0283031 at 38 Grapevine Road, Guy and Andrea Fink. Construction of addition and deck and connection to sewer in buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland, represented by John Judd, Gateway Consultants. Welcome back.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair and members of the commission. For the record, John Judd. This is a continued item from the last hearing. We were simply waiting for a DEP number, which has now been posted. This is just a quick recap. It's a very similar project to the one that was previously approved 2 years ago, but unfortunately, one of the homeowners passed away, and they redesigned the project to eliminate a parking area right here. So they are proposing an expansion here for in-law housing. And again, this area in here was proposed to be driveway. That's no longer needed because it's going to be accessed from the existing driveway out here and through the house. So I can answer any questions you might have at this time.
Okay, let me open this up for public comment. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to comment on the project at 38 Grapevine Road?
There are currently 12 attendees, and I'm not seeing any hands up at this time.
Okay, I'll close. Whoops.
Sorry, go ahead. Close it.
Okay, I'll close the public comment period. We'll go through commissioner comments.
I just want to clarify one thing, and I don't think it really bears anything, but I believe this was withdrawn before it was voted on because of the death of the owner at the time. So it
My
was not.
apologies. Yep.
I don't think it was previously approved, but that being said, Member Charpentier.
What are we voting on here? Or are these just comments?
Oh, yeah, commissioner comments. Yep.
Yeah, no, I have no comments.
Member Cook.
No comments.
Member Sargent.
Thank you for stipulating that water will be adequately treated before being discharged. And I want to make sure that a permit to abandon the septic system will be obtained from the health department and a 2-year monitoring for the mortality and mitigation plantings.
Member Materia.
Yeah, my only comment is this, that L-shaped area of mitigation planting on the corner of Ledge and Grapevine. Justin, do you see my little notation I'm making here?
Yes.
So I feel like that little bit of it can be put up here into the northeast corner, just so that there's more mitigation that's closer to the resource area up on Ledge Road. If you could do that, I think that's just the only thing I'd like to say.
Sure.
Member Bella.
I concur, Mr. Terry. That's all I have.
Member Jackson.
I have no additional comments. And you're okay, Mr. Judd, with what we've discussed here tonight?
Yes, Madam Chair. I just made a sketch to try to mimic what Peter has drawn.
Okay. Okay. In that case, I think we're ready to move forward. I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Charpentier moves to close the public hearing for NOI 0283031 at 38 Grapevine Road.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
Member Charpentier.
Yes.
Member Cook.
Yes.
Member Sargent.
Yes.
Member Materi.
Yes.
Member Bella.
Yes.
Member Jackson.
Yes. And Linda, would you like to make another motion?
Sure. Charpentier moves to approve NOI 0283031 at 38 Grapevine Road with the aforementioned conditions of a 2-year monitoring plan for the mitigation, and that the client have the septic permit in hand before construction begins.
Do a second.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
Roll call. Member Charpentier.
Yes.
Member Cook.
Yes.
Member Sargent.
Yes.
Member Materi.
Yes.
Member Bella.
Yes.
And Member Jackson.
Yes. Okay, you're all set, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, Rob, I have to pull you out of retirement. I'm recusing on the NRAD.
All righty. So next up is ANRAD 028303065 Atlantic Road to update delineation Chuck, did you bring in somebody for this?
Yeah, that would be me,
Name and
Mr.
address
Chairman,
for-
John Judd.
I know. Name and address for
Oh,
record.
okay, I'm sorry. John Judd representing the applicant for this continued hearing at 65 Atlantic Road for the application for resource area delineation. This was presented at the last hearing, again, waiting for the DEP to post a number, but also there was a question that Chuck had pointed up, whether the elevation, and maybe I'll just blow this up a little bit here to show how the elevation as shown on the FEMA maps shows the velocity zone at elevation 34. Chuck had mentioned or questioned whether that line should actually come through the building. We subsequently went out to the property and measured this stone wall that is installed here, and it goes along the front of this existing garage. And we have spot grades here that shows although it's slightly above it, it is above elevation 34, and we just followed that contour along the wall and over to match the existing spot grades. So we have spot grades along the top and bottom of the wall, and that's basically the limit of the elevation 34 as shown here. The other resource area is obviously the coastal bank across the street and the associated 100-foot buffer as shown there. And I can answer any questions you might have.
Normally, Chuck, we go through public comments. We do these on delineations? I can never remember. Chuck, you there? Breathe.
You know, we're not talking about a project, we're just talking about the resource delineation, so I guess, yeah, I'm not sure without public actually going onto the property and looking at the site, how they'd know much about the delineation, so.
Okay, so you don't have to.
I don't, yeah, I guess, well, I mean, it's been noticed, so I guess maybe see if there are any public comments, might as well.
Okay. So you want me to just, I might as well do it and just get people, in case somebody's out there. Okay. So anyone who wishes to speak for or against the delineation located at, sorry, I'm losing my voice here.
65 Atlantic.
5 Atlantic Road may do so by hitting the raise your hand button at the bottom of your screen or hitting *9 on your phone or handheld device.
We currently have 9 attendees and there are no hands up.
Seeing none, hearing none, close public comment period. Next up would be Commissioner roll call comments.
Member Charpentier,
No comment.
Member Cook,
No comments.
Member Sargent,
No comment.
Member Terry,
No comment.
Member Vella.
No comment. Okay. So with that, we want to move on to approval in closing.
Okay. We didn't have a hearing to close, correct?
I think we treat these the same as a notice of intent. I think
Yeah.
it's the same.
Okay.
procedure.
Yeah,
Full
okay.
notice.
Charpentier moves to close the public hearing for Ann Red 0283030 at 65 Atlantic Road.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
Roll call, Member Charpentier,
Yes.
Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Sargent,
Yes.
Member Terry,
Yes.
Member Vella.
Yes.
Charpentier, did we
Yeah.
get everybody?
Yep.
Okay, Charpentier moves to approve Ann Red 0283030 at 65 Atlantic Road.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
Roll call, Member Charpentier,
Yes.
Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Sargent,
Yes.
Member Terry,
Yes.
and Member Vella.
Yes. All right, you're all set.
Okay, thank you very much. Happy holidays to everybody.
You too. Thank you.
For the record, Commissioner Jackson has returned to the meeting. And we're moving on to NOI 0283029 at 12 Sumner Street, Heidi Fiallo, for construction of single-family home in buffer zone to Coastal Bank and ACEC. Dan Ottenheimer, Mill River Consulting, representing.
Can't hear you, Dan.
There he is. Dan, you with us?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I
Excellent.
apologize for the hiccup there. Sorry.
That's okay. Name and address for the record, please.
Hello, Dan Ottenheimer, engineer with Mill River Consulting at 6 Sergeant Street in Gloucester. And thank you, commissioners. We're here to discuss project on 12 Sumner Street. Heidi Fialo is the owner and the applicant. She's on the call as well. And we had some good discussion at the last meeting. We've revised the submission, and maybe it makes sense for me to give you an update on what's changed in the interim.
That'd be good.
Okay, if I can share my screen, I can. All right, are you seeing that presentation?
We're seeing continued hearing, yes, 12
Great.
Summer Street. Yep.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, so I'll walk you through. So remember, the project is to remove invasive species, build a new dwelling, plant native species, and create a do not disturb zone. Remind the commission that no work is proposed in any resource area. This is just a buffer zone project, which you have reviewed and approved many times. We have demonstrated, and we'll show you again this evening, that the performance standards for work in a buffer zone has been met. So since our last hearing, Commissioner Charpentier asked us to identify the trees on the site. So we have done that. We have specified that 2 times the trees that are going to be removed will be planted. We've also increased the do not disturb zone. So it now includes more than 25% of the parcel. And for perspective, I believe, having been at many of your meetings, very few clients voluntarily offer up a do not disturb zone to begin with, let alone that. This project is just increased the size of the do not disturb zone as well. And then Commissioner Jackson had question about the granite posts that we were proposing, and that it would involve some disturbance in the upland edge to put in those granite do not disturb markers. So we've moved the granite posts outside of the upland edge. So there is no physical disturbance proposed whatsoever in the upland edge. So this is what we have submitted for your review. You can see the trees that are to be removed identified here, obviously where the house is and where the driveway is going. And then the majority of the trees along the southern side here, as well as on the slope, are going to remain. So just for perspective, there are not a ton of trees on this site. So I wanted you to just see that. This is the slope heading down. These are the trees that will not be touched, will not be disturbed whatsoever. The work is happening to the right of these trees. So I was also asked what's different between the previous application and this one. For one, we've had neighbor communication. We outreached to all the neighbors. 3 of them met with us before we even submitted to you. And as a result of feedback from them, we did redesign the house to move it further away from the side property lines. Second thing that's different is the owner is the applicant, not a builder that was proposing to purchase the property. The previous application had a deck and a wall and fill material in the upland edge. We have removed those. The previous application had work in a salt marsh buffer zone. We have removed that. We are voluntarily offering up a do not disturb zone. We are mitigating or protecting 51% of the parcel, which is a huge percentage compared to most other mitigation projects. The previous application was proposing to remove a large tree on the southern side of the property, and we're not proposing to do that. And the previous application really did not have construction controls like dumpster location, a staging area identified, riprap placed down at the entrance to keep dirt off of the road, and we have those proposed. So there is some significant differences from the previous submission. So we are working, proposing to work only within buffer zone to coastal bank as defined in the Wetlands Protection Act, and buffer zone to the upland edge as defined in the Gloucester Wetlands Ordinance. We are not proposing any work in a resource area. So again, just to refresh your memory, under the Wetlands Protection Act, there's a top of coastal bank. The 100-foot buffer from the top of coastal bank is shown here. And the review standards are, does the work have an impact on the stability of the coastal bank? And I would submit that there is no impact on the stability of the coastal bank. The closest work for the house is 76 feet away from the top of the bank. There will be extensive vegetation remaining in that zone in this zone between the house and the coastal bank. And then the other feature is there's this flat area here, not owned by us, that used to be a road. So if this road is not a risk to the coastal bank, then I certainly can't see that this work would be a risk to the coastal bank. The other buffer zone is the upland edge, which is defined in the Gloucester Wetlands Ordinance. We're not proposing any work in the upland edge, but in the buffer zone to the upland edge. And the Gloucester Wetlands Ordinance specifically says that they want that ordinance to apply to newly created lots. And it specifically says if the parcel existed prior to 1961, that this commission can allow the work to proceed. And this is the subdivision of this land in 1921, creating Lot 2, which is the one we're talking about here, which was purchased and still owned, purchased in 1937 and still owned today by the Fiallo family. So what are our enhancements? We have temporary measures to protect the resource area, pervious driveway, pervious patio, open space being offered up as a voluntary give. We're managing invasive plants on the site. We're proposing native plantings. We're mitigating the impervious area at a ratio of 2.6 to 1. So this is the planting and mitigation area that's proposed. And these plantings along the road are what came out of some of the discussion we had with the neighbors. And I'll show you some of the neighbors' houses. This is the house to the south, and we're proposing vegetative screening between that house and the new house to be built. This is the house to the south, and we're proposing vegetative screening along here. And this is the house to the east across the street, and we're proposing vegetative screening here as well. So 51% of the parcel is going to be preserved. 4,208 square feet will be do not disturb zone. Extensive native species enhancements and plantings. Extensive benefits to the natural resources in the area. And in conclusion, we believe the standards for work in a buffer zone have been met. DEP has provided no technical comments, and we kindly ask that you consider issuing an order of conditions.
Okay, thank you very much. You know the routine. We're going to open this up for public comment and then go through commissioner comments. And if you could then respond to everything at once, we'd appreciate it. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to comment on the project at 12 Sumner Street?
We currently have 6 attendees and two hands up. First was Brian James.
Hi, can you hear me now?
We can. Name and address for the record, please, sir.
Hi, my name is Brian James at 10 Sumner Street.
Okay, and how can we help you?
Yeah, hi, I just had a quick question. Thanks for the presentation to the client, and thank you, members of the committee, for listening. This plan has half of the house and the patio and the stairs and plantings located in the buffer zone, which was just mentioned, to the coastal bank, which the wetlands ordinance, from my understanding, said is not supposed to be removed, filled, dredged, altered, or built upon. The ordinance says that anyone intending to perform work in this area has to demonstrate that the work is not significant to the protection of certain interests, many of which seem to apply in this case, including the groundwater supply, the prevention of erosion and sedimentation, which may affect wetland interests, the prevention of pollution, and the protection of wildlife habitat, as well as more indirect interests like shellfish habitats and fisheries, when you consider that Walker Creek feeds into Essex Bay and the Great Marsh. So my question is, how are these specific interests being addressed? Again, thank you for your time and consideration.
You're very welcome. We're going to go through any other abutter comments or interested parties and the commissioner comments, and then the applicant will respond.
The next hand up is Christine.
Hi, Christine, 14 Sumner Street. There were a few things from the last meeting that I wanted to comment on. Mr. Ottenheimer said he did not know where the water from the catch basin is running. So we shared a video and photos with the commission showing it running from the catch basin through the property. There only seems to be a straw wattle addressing all the concerns about drainage and erosion on the lot. Mr. Ottenheimer also said that the exception was not discussed 2 years ago, but the minutes show that member Gradwell brought that up at the very first meeting in May of 2022. There was also a suggestion that the project was denied 2 years ago because the applicant changed the design of the septic system, but that was only one concern among many that were never resolved and still seem relevant. Also, this plan is still missing the reserve leach field and many of the dimensions, offsets, and setbacks that would be helpful if shown. Member Jackson mentioned at the last meeting, finding the minutes from 2 years ago. And because many of the concerns raised then are still relevant, I would like to read back some of the comments from the 2022 minutes. Member Cook said he didn't believe a variance should be granted because of the proximity to the ACEC buffer zone. He expressed concerns about the drainage because of how steep the area is back there and because the property is filled land. Member Sargent expressed concerns that the entire project is located within the 200-foot buffer zone to the upland edge of the ACEC, and that the applicant is trying to fit a lot into a very small area that is highly environmentally sensitive. He said that in order to permit the project, the applicant had to show that the overall project and septic system would have absolutely no adverse impact to the ACEC or the upland edge. Member Sargent also expressed concerns about the mitigation plantings in the upland edge significantly altering the upland edge vegetation, and about the impact the project would have on the groundwater table of the ACEC. He explained the issues behind a potential variance, including the inability of septic systems to filter out medicines and chemicals, which have a negative impact on fish and shellfish. Member Charpentier also expressed concerns about the impacts to the ACEC. Member Jackson said she had a lot of reservations about the project and was not sure how much a redesign would change her mind. She said there was not a lot of choice on that lot. Member Gradwell said that while the septic system could be permitted because of an exception in the local ordinance for lots created prior to 1961, he believed the commission still had to determine that the overall project and septic system met the highest performance standard of absolutely no adverse impact to the ACEC in order to permit the project. He reiterated concerns that the entire project is within the 200-foot buffer zone to the upland edge of the ACEC. Many of these concerns still seem to be concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else, Chuck?
There are no other hands up.
Okay, thank you. Okay, commissioner comments?
Carpentier.
No, it always seems interesting that we have buffer zones to protect resources and then allow all the development within the buffer zone. So I think there are still questions that need to be resolved.
Member Cook. You're muted.
Yeah, I'm still very concerned about the drainage, as you know, you could see in the video provided by one of the abutters, and if you've gone out there and looked at it during the rain, that catch basin just catches the water and then drains it right back into that property. So it goes right where the septic system would be, so I don't know what the plan is to address that catch basin, because if they stop allowing the water to flow down there, it has to go somewhere. And that would negate anything, you know. So I'm very concerned about that. It needs to be addressed either by the homeowner or by the city, or a combination of both. But as it stands right now, until that catch basin and the drainage there where it flows is addressed, I can support it.
I agree that this proposal is different from the previous proposal for the site. This proposal has an approved septic system plan, as well as the applicant's agent has stated, because this lot is under existence before 1961 of the Gloucester Wetland Ordinance, there is not a strict prohibition of drainage and septic system installation, and the commission is allowed to approve, and the wording is may approve and not shall approve such projects. However, the performance standard for projects with an ACEC has not changed. It's elevated from the usual wetland standard of there must be no significant adverse impact to one of there must be absolutely no adverse impacts. I've taken a look at the approved septic system plan on the Health Department Septic System website, and there are 2 details in that plan that should also be included in this submittal for the Conservation Commission. First, as mentioned previously, the reserved area for the septic system location and its distance from the ACEC should also be included in the conservation plan, as it is on the Health Department plan. Secondly, there are 2 drainage swales that are depicted on the Health Department plan and not on the conservation plan. First, it's a drainage swale on the southerly side of the property that's designed to direct runoff away from the dwelling and property line from the area of the proposed driveway to the upland edge. The second drainage swale is on the northerly side of the property that would direct runoff from Sumner Street alongside the proposed septic system and property line again to the upland edge of the ACEC. These drainage swales that are in the Health Department plan should also be included in the conservation plan. Without these details, this proposal cannot be fully vetted and is incomplete. Thank you.
Member Materi.
I have a number of questions and comments. First question is whether the updated delineation, the plan relies on a delineation from 2014. I'm not sure if we need to update that to something more modern. There's a note of a riverfront area on the plan. It doesn't say which distance that is, whether that's 200 feet or 100 feet. So I just asked Dan for clarification on that. The open space and the do not disturb zone, are those the same area being referenced? And how will those be protected? Will it be by a conservation restriction, a deed restriction, or just a continuing condition in the order of conditions? Couple comments on work in the upland edge and the buffers to the upland edge. The invasive species removal and native plantings in the upland edge are technically removal of vegetation in the upland edge, and those also require a variance under the Gloucester Wetlands Ordinance. My question is, why is there no invasive species removal for all of the buffer zone to the bank? It just seems to be for one strip, kind of closer to the house. The house is within 100 foot of the upland edge. Is there a roof drainage plan or some sort of system for handling drainage off the roof? Portions of the septic system, the tank biofilter, the portion of leach field are within 100 feet of the upland edge. Those are going to require a variance from the wetlands ordinance. Everybody's already spoken about that. What is a Waterloo biofilter? And is that a piece of equipment that's designed for sensitive environments? And then final question about the catch basin issue. I suggest the applicant have a discussion with the DPW to see if there's any maintenance that needs to be done on that catch basin to make sure it functions properly.
Member Grillo.
I think Peter covered it all for me. Nothing else to add.
Member Jackson.
I have no additional comments. Chuck, do you have any comments?
I do not have anything additional, no.
Okay. Okay, sir. Mr. Ottenheimer, would you like to respond?
Yes, thank you. I think I can shed some useful light on some of the items that were brought up. Start with Mr. James' comment. I believe what he was reading from is for the standards for work in a resource area. And we're not proposing to work in a resource area. We're proposing to work in a buffer zone. And Ms. Baxter's comments that for example, straw wattle is the only protection proposed is really not true. We've identified construction staging areas. We've identified the need to make sure that mud from vehicles during the construction process doesn't get carried off site. So we have a rock entrance and exit to the site. So I don't think it's correct to say that's the only protection that's included. So to the commissioner's questions, the main one that Commissioner Cook had about drainage ties into what was brought up with a few other commissioners' comments about showing the reserve area and the drainage swales. And as this board knows, what is before you is when somebody is proposing to change something or do something. We are not proposing to change anything with the drainage system. The reserve area on the septic system is not proposed to be built today. If that is needed to be built 50 or 100 years from now, they would have to come back before the commission for that. And the drainage swales that were shown on the septic system plan that went to the Board of Health, we are no longer proposing. It's not changing the septic design whatsoever, but that's why they're not in front of this commission. So what we have presented to you is what we would like to implement. We're not showing you things that we're not doing, because obviously that's not what happens with the Wetlands Protection Act. Somebody comes to a conservation commission to ask permission to do A, B, and C. So that is, I think, an important perspective I'd like to share with all. Commissioner Sargent talked about performance standards within the ACEC. And yes, there's no doubt that Walker Creek is an ACEC. I'm not questioning that at all. But we are in buffer zone here. We are not in the ACEC proper. And I think that's an important distinction. Commissioner Viteri is wondering the riverfront area that we showed. It is the regulatory standard of 200 feet. That is riverfront, and that's what we're showing. We are proposing some invasive vegetation removal on part of the property. We thought that was an enhancement. If the commission feels like that is work in the resource area, that we don't have to propose that. We thought that would be a nice thing to do to make this parcel even more environmentally friendly than what we're already proposing. And with respect to the septic tanks themselves, there are 2 tanks, and yes, Mr. Viteri, that Waterloo biofilter is a very specialized treatment system, but I do not believe they need a variance from the Gloucester Wetlands Ordinance, because those standards for the distance for a septic system component to the upland edge are exempted or allowed to be exempted for any parcel that predates the effective date of 1961.
That's the variance.
It's not a variance. It's allowed.
Well, I mean, we collectively call it a variance. Maybe it's not technically called a variance, but essentially it's in our discretion to allow those components, even though the wetland ordinance prohibits them. It's in our discretion to allow them for lots before 1961. Hence, I think we colloquially call it a variance if it's not technically that in the wetland ordinance, but that's what we're referring to.
Okay, got it. Yes, I agree with you. I just wanted the terminology I think is important. So I agree with you. The concept, yes, but technically it's not a variance. Yes. So I hope that helps. If I can shed more information, I'd be glad to.
Yeah, I've got a follow-up question. If the Board of Health approved a plan with a reserve septic area on, reserve leaching area on it, and with 2 drainage swales, I'm not sure, since we usually require an approved septic plan to move forward with an NOI, but you haven't given us, that's not what you've given us here. I have a problem with that.
So sometimes we submit the approval documents from the health department that says the plan is approved. We don't typically provide the actual engineering drawings. I certainly could. We're not trying to hide anything, but that's not the norm of what we provide to this commission. So I could get you the letters from the health department saying that the septic system has been approved, if that would be helpful.
But did they approve it on the basis of a plan that includes components that are not reflected here?
No. It's regardless. At one point, let me take a step back. At one point, we thought the roof runoff from the house would be directed down the 2 sides of either side of the house with gutters and downspouts, and then into an infiltration area. And so we showed that on the septic plan. We actually didn't even need to show it, but we showed that. It's not part of the septic system. It's not critical to the health department's review. What we're proposing now is a simpler drip edge off of the house with no gutters and downspouts, and consequently we do not need drainage swales. We do not need to change the grading. We're not going to have gutters and downspouts.
And what about the reserve area?
So again, it's not being built. So I can show it on the plan, but it doesn't matter because what you're acting on is what you should be acting on for an application, whether it's this or anything else, is what someone's proposing to do in the near future. The septic reserve area does exist. It won't get built for 50 or 100 years or ever. So it exists, but it's not proposed. No action is proposed associated with it in front of the commission.
Okay.
I would disagree with Mr. Ottenheimer on those 2 issues. Title V requires that drainage be directed away from the septic system, and there's already drainage directed towards the proposed septic system area. And a new construction, it's impossible for a project to be approved for just the primary and not have a reserve area. So in fact, we're also approving the area where the reserve area, which is closer to the ACEC, by the way.
Correct. The health department cannot approve a project for new construction without a reserve area. I'll show it on the plan. I don't care. My point is, I don't think it's critical because what you should be acting on is what people are proposing to build. That's what a notice of intent is for. Someone's giving notice that they're intending to do A, B, and C. And if a commission agrees to it, that's what they will do. We're not intending to build a reserve area. So I don't see why it needs to be shown, but we will show it. Not a problem.
Thank you.
Can you provide the specs for the Waterloo biofilter equipment?
Yes, yes.
And then I don't think you addressed the question on the open space or do not disturb area. Is that going to just be a continuing condition and order of condition, or is there going to be a deed restriction or something to that effect?
We're open to whatever standard practice the commission is most comfortable with. We certainly can make it a perpetual condition of the order because that'll stay on the deed. We could put a separate notice on the deed, whatever commission's most comfortable with.
I'm personally comfortable with a perpetual condition in the order of conditions.
Okay. I would like to just clarify for a minute my feelings on the removal of vegetation in the upland edge. I think it would be nice to remove non-native species, invasive species, and replant them with native species. However, I don't know as doing it all at once in one fell swoop is helpful. I would rather see it staged in phases so that one area can get stabilized before the next is disturbed. I think might be a better approach, but I'm willing to listen to other commissioners on that. Does anybody have any comments?
Yeah, I'm certainly in favor of invasive species removal. I just made a note that it technically, I think, requires, you know, a quote unquote variance. I don't think that anybody on the commission would, you know, deny that variance, but I would be in favor. I'm wondering why there's not more of it in the area that's proposed. If you pull up the plan, it seems like it's only in a little strip of the do not disturb zone.
That's correct. It's the area closest to the house. We thought that that was the more sensitive area, and then downgrading of that, we thought we would leave it undisturbed, and then downgrading of that, it's the end of our property, and there's that former road to the marsh. But if the commission is thinking we should expand the invasives removal area, I don't think we're adverse to that at all. It's not a bad idea.
How do commissioners feel about that? Anybody want to offer any comments?
I think it's good. I would definitely do that.
Rob, can you say that again a little closer to the mic?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that's a good option.
Okay. So more extensive replanting, removal and replanting. How far do you want to go?
Well, I mean, the site is obviously pretty small and pretty packed in. So as much as we can get in there without compromising use of the structure.
Okay. Would you agree with a phased approach, or do you think it can be done all at once?
Yeah, I wouldn't go that way. I don't think it would be done all at once. I'd definitely phased approach.
I'm sorry, say it one more time.
Maybe it's too far away. No, I would definitely do a phased approach if we could.
Okay. Okay. Chuck, do you have anything additional after all of this information's been forthcoming?
No, I think several commissioners had questions about that storm drain and having it flow towards where the proposed leach field is going. So I think that's an important thing to follow up on as well.
Okay, to address those issues.
Yep.
Yeah. Can we do something, Mr. Ottenheimer, to address the drainage issue? Since it's coming in towards the septic?
Perhaps. I'd be glad to look into it. Yes, I'd be glad to look into it. I'm not adverse to researching it. Yep, sure.
Okay,
Yes.
I'd appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've proposed an increase in the invasive and replanting in the upland edge in a phased approach, and you're going to look into the drainage area. You're going to add the reserve area to the plan. Have you talked with DPW about the catch basin?
Yes.
And
They basically said it's not working. We don't know what's going on. That's the extent.
okay. All right.
Well, the issue is, it's either not working or it's working the way it's supposed to, and that's where it's just draining into what was at one time an empty lot. Because that's where it's going. I mean, that's the problem. It could have been put into catch basin to get all the water running down the street, and then it's draining it down there. That could have been the city design at the time. I have no idea, but it's either that or the catch basin is compromised, but that has to be determined because, I couldn't approve the plan and then have you block up something that's going to cause an additional problem either with that catch basin or further down.
Yeah, I think that's the important information. That video, it looked like to me, is that the water wasn't even getting into the catch basin and it was just flowing over the surface down the property. So if that's the case and the catch basin is not functioning, or the catch basin is functioning and just the outlet of the catch basin is the property is important information to know. I would think that if you stopped the surface flow onto the property, you might create a ponding issue on that part of the street if the catch basin's not working the way it's supposed to be working. So maybe something more needs to happen with DPW to get them to investigate the issue or something, but that water's gotta go somewhere.
Correct. I fully agree with that last statement. Yes, no doubt. So I will research that. You know, again, we're not proposing to do anything different, but I also understand with the drainage system, but I do also understand the commissioner's concern. So let me do a little more homework and circle back with you on that.
Okay.
Just,
So
don't mind, I mean, just to follow up on Mr. Sargent as well. One of the reasons we ask about, you know, if you want to not put things on the plan, we get it, but we also need to know that all the things are going to fit. So sometimes we're just looking to see that all your stuff, because you didn't want to put some things on, because you weren't doing them at the time. But when we have complex plans, this one's not that complex, but we want to be able to see where all the components are, even if they're not going to be put in anytime soon, as you said, 50, 100 years. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yes. Though I would still submit, like sometimes a house we know is going to have solar panels on the roof. We're not showing you the solar panels that are going to go on the roof. We don't show the commission everything. We're showing you the stuff that's relevant, we think, to your decision. And on a septic reserve area that's not going to be used for decades, I didn't think it was relevant to your decision, but I stand corrected and I will add that.
okay, thank you. When would you like to continue to?
I don't think I'll have all of this ready for the first meeting in January. So the second meeting in January, if that's possible?
That would be January 22nd.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I will entertain a motion.
Charpentier moves to continue NOI 0283029 at 12 Sumner Street to the commission meeting of January 22nd, 2025.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
Roll call, Member Charpentier,
Yes,
Member Cook,
Yes,
Member Sargent,
Yes.
Member Viteri,
Yes.
Member Bella, Member Bella,
Yes.
and Member Jackson.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Okay. See
Thanks
you
for your
in a
time this
month.
evening.
Thank you.
Thanks for your
Happy
time.
holidays.
Oh, thanks. You too, everybody. Appreciate it.
Okay. Next up, under new business, we have RDA 1819 at 12 Island Rock Lane, Lawrence Whitten for seasonal installation of ramp and float in rocky intertidal shores, land under the ocean, land subject to coastal storm flowage, and land containing shellfish, represented by John Judd, Gateway Consultants, Inc.
This on the agenda?
what are we doing?
I don't see it on the agenda.
Oh, really? Cool. All right. You're right. You're right. I don't know. I had that continued to 12/18. I don't know what happened to it. Chuck?
Which one was that again? Sorry.
12 Island Rock Lane?
Oh, yeah, so we had made a positive determination on the RDA last time.
You told me this once. Never mind. My notes were incomplete. I messed up.
They
Coming
submitted
in with
an
an
NOI.
NOI. Yeah.
That'll be on our January 8th meeting. Yep.
All right. Let's try the next one.
Yep, this one.
EXP, extension 0282830 at 1 Biskie Head Point, Heron Way Cooperative Association. And we're going to continue them.
Yes, to January 8th.
Okay. I will
It's,
entertain a motion.
And it's 15 Biskie Head Road.
15?
Yes.
15?
Yep.
Okay.
15 Biskie Head.
Oh, yeah. Yep. I see the correction.
And we're continuing to what day?
January 8th.
Okay, and we're starting that meeting at 2:30 in the afternoon? Okay, Charpentier moves to continue extension 0282830 at 15 Biskie Head Point to the commission meeting of January 8th, 2025.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
Roll call, Member Secretary,
Yes,
Member Cook,
Yes,
Member Sergeant,
Yes.
Member Siri,
Yes.
Member Bella,
Yes.
and Member Jackson.
Yes. Okay, no certificates of compliance. Next up, under violations, we have 4 Stewart Avenue. Is there any new information on that?
I have not heard anything recently from them. I will reach out to Mr. Salvo again, as well as the owner, and see if they're planning on getting anything to us. They're very responsive earlier, but yeah, the past 2 meetings, it's been a little radio silence, so I'm not sure what's going on there.
Okay. Next up, we have enforcement order 2408 for Whistle Stop Away, and that is going to be continued, correct?
Yeah, so I met with Mr. Simboli, the owner, and also they've hired a wetlands specialist, the same one that is working on the enforcement order for 227 Atlantic, which is also Backshore Place. They had a crew that's going to be doing the delineation this past week, and I believe possibly also getting I think they're going to try to get a survey crew out there this week to shoot the entire area, and working on some of the additional plans and that sort of thing, and trying to get us something the beginning of January. So we should have something probably by the January 8th meeting.
Okay, sounds good.
The wetlands.
And
What's that?
The wetland specialist for that? Is that the gentleman that on Atlantic you said?
Yes. Yeah. So he's
Mark Arnold?
Yep.
Yeah, I like him. Good.
Yeah. So I did a site visit with him out at that site, and they've finally got that area. It looks like it's going to be functioning as a wetland, which is good. Got some monitoring wells installed, and it looks like it's on the right track out there. So I'm pleased that he's been brought on to this one as well. I think hopefully get this one back on track too.
Okay. Is there anything else that we need to discuss tonight?
Angela, did you find anyone to replace you on Shellfish?
I think Rob's going to, right, Rob?
Okay.
Okay.
If no one was gonna do it, I could do it. He sounds interesting.
It is kind of interesting. It's not a lot of heavy lifting on the commission side. But I've enjoyed it all these years. I don't know when the next meeting is. I will try to find out that.
You sent it to me. I don't have it under my paperwork now. But yeah, give it a whirl, Peter. If you don't, I'll step back in. It's okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right. I will let you both know, and we'll take it from there. I told them that I would stay on until they had a replacement or until February, because that's when my commission ends. So, okay. Is there anything else?
no, just a Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah.
Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah to you all, and we will see you in 2025.
Do we need to move to adjourn?
You go for it, Linda.
Move to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Roll call, Member Charpentier,
Yes.
Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Sergeant,
Yes.
Member Materi,
Yes.
Member Bella, and Member Jackson.
Yes.
All right, everybody.
All right. Good night, all.
Night.
Thank you.
Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas. Be safe.
Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah.